Can the Jazz get the John Collins deal to Sacramento back and alive? What are other deals that might get done? It's all part of a Friday Ask LOJ edition of Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every time, and each and every day, each and every moment, whatever it might be. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked on Jazz. I don't remember where I am in the open. I was fiddling with a thing. That's so funny. I just have to share. I literally was like, do I tell them I just feel wasted today? And I do. I just feel wasted today. I'll be fine. We'll have a great time. But there'll be mishaps like that where my brain just didn't start the show correctly. So anyway, as I mentioned, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. We give you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully make it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. So thank you very much for being a part of the show. We also have a daily newsletter at lockedondaily.com. That is free. Here's the show today. Your questions always on a Friday on the Ask LOJ edition. We will start off with, or we'll get back to people wanting more on the 10-minute quarter. We'll try to get that if we have a chance. Some questions about Cody Williams and Keyonte George, Lauri struggles, rank the first and second year players. How many players do I think will be traded by Thursday? And we'll lead it off with James Ham in Sacramento reporting the Kings and the Jazz had a deal done for John Collins. What was the deal? And could it still happen? And by the way, today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers came at $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. So James Ham is a very good reporter in Sacramento. It's been around for a long time. I think he works for NBC Bay Area. And so he did report that the Jazz and Sacramento had a deal done to the point in which players and agents were notified. That's pretty far down the road. And then Sacramento pulled out of the deal, which seems strange. Sacramento seems a little strange right now. The first reaction would be, well, that must be because then the De'Aaron Fox thing blew up. But that doesn't seem to be how the De'Aaron, if you listen to Matt George at Locked on Kings, that doesn't seem to be how the De'Aaron Fox thing blew up. The story seems to be that they just started to look into the De'Aaron Fox thing more, and they notified everyone that it was happening, that it wasn't necessarily the De'Aaron Fox kind of saying, hey, I got to get traded, and that would have killed this deal. What Matt George really hit on, I listened to him last night on the drive home, is that there's dysfunction inside Sacramento's front office, that Monty Morris and Wes Wilcox, and I know Wes is a great guy, so I don't know, and I don't know Monty Morris, but that basically they both interviewed for the job at the same time. Monty Morris got the job. Wes Wilcox was the runner-up, and they made him the assistant GM, and it's created this in-house friction forever. And then you have Vic Ronadive, the owner, who's always involved, and you just have dysfunction going on. So that's what Matt George reported yesterday on Locked on Kings, that you may just have two different split camps in there. So the deal, I don't know. Let me just say that first. However, as we've talked about a lot, these aren't that complicated. So John Collins makes $26 million, and you go put it together, and they're not trading Sabonis, Fox, DeRozan, Monk. So Kevin Huerter makes 16. They're not trading Keegan Murray, and Trey Lyles makes 8. The next salary is Devin Carter at 5. They're not trading him. The next trade is Keon Ellis. There's only one trade it can be. Okay. So it has to be Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles to get that deal done. And then the question is whether the Jazz would get draft capital from Sacramento. If the Jazz got draft capital for Sacramento, that's a pretty good deal for the Jazz. if they got a first round pick, if they got a second round pick, it's kind of what I expect in the market. I really think it's very, very difficult to move first round picks right now, or to get someone to move a first round pick. So if the Jazz got a first round pick on that deal, it'd be a great deal. The Jazz could just decide that Kevin Huerter's more on the timeline than John Collins, and they want that Kevin Huerter you're buying low on right now because he's shooting 30% from three, but he's been a pretty good shooter his whole career, and that they ran a whole handoff off-ball game with him with Mike Brown a year ago, and then they stopped doing it this year because DeMar DeRozan came, and the way the Jazz play the second most off-ball of any team in the NBA, he's a really good fit for what we do. And so it's just worth trading for Kevin Huerter. The question you ask is, could it still happen? Yeah, certainly. If Sacramento falls short at everything else, then they have a fallback to get a deal done. I'll be honest, I believe James Ham. I just haven't heard that things were that close, but the people in Sacramento certainly believe that they were. And I do think John Collins actually had an illness. I don't think that we had an illness going. I'll say this. I didn't talk to John, but we had an illness going through the team that was legitimate. So maybe John was not an illness. It was a trade and they thought they had it done. I don't know. So I'm not going to I don't have any breaking news or insight on this. And could it still happen? Certainly it's hard to get those things rekindled to that point, but obviously both teams know that they're close to something there. And we'll see what could happen. Sacramento's pick, there are protections, I think, on their Sacramento's pick is a little encumbered with Atlanta, if I remember correctly. So I don't know exactly how what pick it would be, frankly, for the Jazz to get involved in. But I think, and I'm certain, there's zero chance that Sacramento is going to give up a pick that could roll into the lottery or some sort of that nature. There's zero chance of that. So to answer your question, that's what the deal. I don't know what the pick contingencies would be. That deal has to be Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter financially. And could it rekindle? Certainly. And I do not know that it was as close as James Hammonds reported. How many Jazz players do you think will be traded between now and Thursday? I'm going to just hold on this. Talking to people around the league, I talked about yesterday, there were 3 tracks that Fox, Butler kind of are holding it all up right now, Levine. And until that gets done, it doesn't feel like a lot's going to bust. Now, on the other side of things, deals have to get done. They always do. Like, we're just not going to go through a trade deadline where suddenly nothing gets done. Like, the pressure of the deadline will be a forcing action. Things will happen. However, the money game that's going on in the league just makes it so there's so few teams that are able to make deals that I think it gets complicated. I had done a whole thing that the Drew Eubanks, Zeke Naji deal is $100,000 short from getting done. But then I noticed that Bobby Marks on ESPN did that deal. That one's just like so perfect. It would be good for Denver. The Jazz take Zeke Naji, find out whether he can play or not next year. Probably, usually that doesn't happen that he can suddenly play somewhere else. But maybe. And we get something for it. And you sign Drew Eubanks for a $5 million deal and you get something. That's incredible. Asset management. Other than that, I do think Collin Sexton's really, really good. I mean, here's the one thing that whether Jazz players get traded. John Collins and Collin Sexton are really having unbelievably good years. John Collins is shooting 45% from 3. Like, if I go back through John Collins' career, he's in Atlanta at 22, scoring 21 points, getting 10 rebounds a game. It was not on a good team. And then he falls out of the rotation a little bit. But he falls out of the rotation. Then he has a year where he averages 18 points and 8 rebounds. And he shoots 40% from 3 on those 2 years. And he falls out of the rotation and becomes a corner 3 shooter, and Nate McMillan and Quinn Snyder. And it's all bad. And by the time the Jazz get him, he's averaging 13 points. His minutes are still at 30, but he's shooting 29% from 3. And the league is this bad contract, and he's overvalued. Okay, well, in the last 2 years, he's shooting 53% from the field, 37% from the field, and 45% from 3 this year, 37 last year, on 3 attempts a game, and getting 8 rebounds. Like, he's got issues. There's reasons why he was available. He's not perfect. But because if he was perfect, he's a 53, 45, almost 90 guy right now. Like, there's just some level where some team has to be like, he's really good. It's crazy to me that we're into this trade deadline and we're not discussing like the fact that he's really good. It's all about all the difficulties and everything. So that's the one thing on John. Frankly, Matt George does his whole show yesterday how Sacramento just seems to have forgotten that they need guys that are 6'8 to 6'10 on their roster. John Collins is not going to be a defensive stopper. There's a lot of things he's certainly not going to do. And there's areas where he has weaknesses. We've talked about what a tweener he is. He's probably a 4 out of 5. He's certainly a 4 if he can shoot 45% from 3. And then there's Collin Sexton. This guy's averaging 40, shooting an effective field goal percentage of 51.3 as a guard. He scores 19 points a game. There just aren't many guys in the league who can score like him. He's shooting 42% from 3. His last 3 years, he's shot 39, 39, and 42. Sure, he's nuts. Sure, he's endless energy. Sure, he doesn't always run the right play. Sure, he doesn't always execute perfectly. Sure, he makes crazy things. Sure, last night he turned it over and went and gave John Collins a high five instead of getting back defensively. He's Collin. There's a whole package that comes with it, but he's really good. So to me, there's a level where I just can't quite understand why someone isn't going to jump on him. That's the only thing I would say. Rank the first and second year players and most likely to have the best career. What would it be? Interesting. It's next on Locked On Jazz. That's not what I meant to hit. I almost ended the show right there. Woo, my brain is at about a third of its capability. Friday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our good friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Hyundai lineup of cars, absolutely fantastic, as you guys have heard before probably. If you're an everydayer, I have bought 3 of them. So I am a Hyundai believer. I'm a Hyundai believer because for the price tag and the amount of bells and whistles and safety features and look, I don't think there's a better buy on the market. And so we have bought the Ioniq 5. We've bought 2 Santa Fe's. Right now, the SUV lineup is awesome. The Palisade is so gorgeous. I'm driving the Santa Fe right now, and I was driving out yesterday. There was a Palisade in front of me. I was like, oh, wow, I love that. Love them both. There's also the Tucson, and there's the Kona, all in the great SUV lineup. The electric cars are the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6. So Hyundai's got it rolling, and we want to give you the VIP treatment. So email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. So that we can give you the VIP treatment that you deserve over at Murdoch Hyundai. Again, that's dlock09@gmail.com to give you the VIP treatment that you deserve at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by TurboTax. Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting. Wait a sec. Let's try that again. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. And now taxes is matching with TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes the undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on the progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your everyday deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All you can get, the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates only in the iOS app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. The newsletter is the #1 ultimate stop for all things NBA. You get the national article from Mike Schreier yesterday. You get Katie Heindel today. You get the fantasy tips from Josh Lloyd. You get all the links to the most important articles. It's the one-stop must-have NBA fan spot. And it's lockedondaily.com. Please sign up for the Jazz. If you ranked the first and second year players in most likely to have the best career, what would it be? Well, that's super interesting. I almost wonder if I would just go draft order. Like, each draft's a little different. But would I just go Taylor Hendricks, Cody Williams, Keyonte George? Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski? Probably not. So Taylor's hard because of the fact that he's injured. I still think I might go Taylor number one on this. He's just bigger, stronger, better body. Like the league's about bodies. Like long, best career. I'm guaranteed one thing. Taylor Hendricks has a body that and it's huge. His upper body, he just looks so grown up right now. So I have no idea if he can come back from this injury. And maybe that's a sum up of where everybody is. Then I would probably go Taylor Hendricks one. It's a tricky question on the next one because Cody Williams is so far away. And he's the next draft pick at 10. And probably has the most skills, but hard to project right now. And then Keyonte and Isaiah Collier, you've really just got a shooting issue. Keyonte's 2 years in. He's a 39% field goal percentage and 33% from three. That's just not good enough to be an NBA player. Isaiah Collier, who shows all sorts of skills, is a 22% three-point shooter. That's not good enough. Bryce Sensabaugh is good enough from a shooting standpoint, so he has the best singular skill here. But defensively, it's an issue, and speed is an issue, and I think those will always be an issue. His ceiling is... So Bryce might be number 2 on this list, but with a really limited ceiling. I don't think he'll be... I don't know that I can see Bryce guarding the best players for 30 minutes a night ever, which is what you have to do if you're a starter. Boy, can he shoot it. Boy, can he shoot it. The other one is I love this question because I love the thought exercise, and I think it's where a lot of Jazz fans are. It's a great question. But I also just want to get careful to put these guys in a box, right? Like we've seen 100 games out of Keyonte. We've seen 38 out of Isaiah. We've seen 18 out of Cody or something like that, or 30 out of Cody. We're so limited in what we've seen out of these guys. You hate to put them in a box of who they are right now and try to project that out. It is hard to imagine that Bryce Sensabaugh's body changes enough for him to become a fast enough defender to guard for 30 minutes a night. So let's go with that. Isaiah Collier's got a lot of skills. If he can figure out I did a show every day, as you remember. I did a show recently that does Isaiah Collier have the most direct route? Because really, if he can figure out how to shoot at a decent level, he's got a lot of other skills. Like he really sees the floor well. He makes reads well. He's a really smart basketball player. And so maybe I would go Taylor Hendricks just physically 1, Isaiah Collier 2, because it's the gap is shooting. Keontae's got some. I'll tell you what, going to the free throw line from Keyonte right now, there are not a lot of guys that can do. I think if you go and look, there's just not that many guys. Keyonte has shot 10, 8, 2, 2, 11, and 8 free throws in the last 6 games. There aren't a ton of guys that can do that. And in the midst of all of this tumultuous time for Keyonte, at times it feels like he's actually getting better. He's averaging 19 points a game over the last 8 games. He's shooting it not very well. It's a hard question. I'm really dodging it right now. So I'm going to hold that I think Taylor is 1. I think Bryce's ability to shoot is going to keep him in the league for a long time. So I'm going to go with 2 on that, just taking and then I just don't know on Keyonte and Isaiah whether they're going to figure out how to shoot, and then Cody's body. Those are big questions. That's kind of what the drafting of players is. Are you concerned about Lauri's struggles? So can I say yes and no at the same time? I'm really dodging. I'm not dodging the question. So concern, no. Like concern, my answer is no. I've got a body of work of Lauri Markkanen that for 8 years, he's a 37% three-point shooter. That he, since his 3rd year in the NBA, has been about a 39 or 40% three-point shooter. And the only reason I'd be concerned is if you believe that he had a back injury that was debilitating that's going to prevent him from ever being a good shooter again. I think we've blown his rhythm. Okay? So he sat those 4 games and came back for 3, and then he came back for 1. And an NBA player is at their best if they play every other day. And the in and out of the lineup stuff, I think we've blown a few players' rhythm. Over the last 5 games, Lauri's shooting 23% from 3. So that's real. So that's real. Am I concerned? I think this is some long-term problem that's going to exist forever and he's never going to shoot again? No. But yeah, last 5 games, he's shooting 20% from 3. And for the first time ever last night when he shot the ball, I didn't think it was going in. He's off by a good margin. Now, frankly, he makes one more last night. He goes 4 of 10. We're not even talking about it. So no, not really concerned. But he is not shooting the ball well. Does Keyonte realistically have the potential to be significantly better than Collin is right now? And if not, should the Jazz prioritize Collin over Key going forward? That's interesting. This reminds me of the Randy Foye, Alec Burks days when Alec Burks was upcoming. And I was like, he might not have a better career than Randy Foye. And then I think he probably has, but Randy Foye had a pretty good career. So the real issue is that Collin's 26 and Keyonte's 20. And so you're just making that bet. 21. Keyonte's 21. You're just making that bet right now. That Collin's 26, turned it on January 4th, and that Keyonte's 21, and that the age is different. But do I think that averaging 19 points a game in the NBA with efficiency is really hard? And I think that's a fair comment. That maybe Keyonte's never going to average 19 points a game with the way Collin is and being able to score like Collin. Yeah, that's a hard skill. Let's not underestimate it. Let's just not assume that someone can do that. So that's a great point. And then the other angle of that is that Collin's weakness is he's not great defensively. Well, that's not Keyonte's strength right now either, obviously. That's what this whole week's been about. So, right. I think there's something to that. There is a chance Collin Sexton has a better career than Keyonte George. In fact, I would say, but also let's remember one other thing on this. Collin Sexton was the 8th pick of draft. Keyonte was the 16th. Collin Sexton should have a better career than Keyonte George. I sometimes feel for Keyonte George. He's the 16th pick of an NBA draft, but he followed Donovan, and we just want him so badly to be Donovan. It's kind of the way I feel sorry for Walker sometimes. We want him so badly to be Rudy. Both those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. Neither of these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. And so I think that's sometimes a little unfair. Do you think it's realistic for Cody Williams to gain the amount of weight I've talked about? I don't know enough. But he has to. How's that? Yes. Look at his body. Look at his brother. Yes. Look at how good our weight training staff is. Look at how Walker Kessler did it. Look how Taylor Hendricks has done it. Our strength and conditioning crew is awesome. Yes, I do think it's realistic. I think it'll happen. All right. More on 10-minute quarters when we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Why it would be good for the game and terrible for the Utah Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. Eagles, Chiefs, as you're well aware. You don't need me to tell you that. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds. Feel free to thrill of kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting features lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. With an app, it's easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. So download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. Yesterday, we dug into the 10 seconds or the 10-minute quarters. Somebody wanted me to dig into it a little bit more. Here's my take. There's some real validity to this conversation. From a game standpoint, it would be a better product because the stars would be on the floor the entire game, and that's super cool. The problem I have with baseball is that you go see Mike Trout, and you see him, and then you don't see him for another hour. And if we went to a 40-minute game, you would still see NBA players for 36 minutes a night, and on some nights you might see someone for 40, and it would be pretty great. Injuries, which I think is the biggest issue in the league right now, would become less of an issue, not because we're playing 10 minutes, just because a good player would be filling in for a player who's injured, and it wouldn't be as big a deal. You're filling with one less guy. It would be good timing to do this right now around expansion. we're about to stretch out the league. I would say you probably could expand 4 instead of 2 if you're doing this. And the fact that you suddenly, every team would be a little thinner wouldn't really matter. I don't think the players union might ever accept this because it would really make it so that the minimum player doesn't matter. I mean, you're just like, if you look at the box score last night from Minnesota, who's not playing a lot of guys, and that was a blowout. Gobert played 34, Edwards played 35, Alexander Walker played 32, McDaniels played 31, Naz Reid played 20. So whoever's Anthony Edwards backup is playing 5 minutes last night. And so Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it's not great because of their injuries. But those two guys combined for all but 13 minutes. So Rob Dillingham's playing the third guard, playing 13 minutes. The backup center last night, and Rudy's playing 6 minutes. If Julius Randle was healthy, he would have played 35. The third forward, so you're only playing 8-man rotation. The third forward who would oscillate between McDaniels and Randle, if Randle was healthy, would have played 34 last night, would have played a grand total of 15 minutes. So your bench would be playing 6, 15, and 13 minutes. Those are your 3 bench players. 6, 15, and 13 would be my guess on how it would work last night in the league. I mean, if you go to the Houston game last night, Dylan Brooks plays 30, Amon Thompson plays 38. So they would have a grand total of 12 forward minutes, and the guards played 39 and 36. They'd still play the same amount of minutes. They had 5 minutes of guard action, and then because they had an injury to Şengün, they played around with their center last night. Memphis, Jaren Jackson played 31, was in foul trouble because he always is. Wells played 30, so maybe their backup forward would have played 20. Desmond Bane played all 40, and Luke Kennard played 33 with John Moran out, so their other guy would play 7. I mean, there'd just be no bench minutes at all. So I think the union would say no to this. However, the impact of that would be that the best players are always on the floor. The other impact is the league would become incredibly top-heavy and star-laden. If you have a star and you have Anthony Edwards on the floor, you win. Denver would win the title because Jokic would just be on the floor the whole time. At least I think. That's my take. I think it would be terrible for the Utah Jazz. The way the Utah Jazz ever win a game or win is the fact that they would have depth. And then other teams use the salary cap. By the way, Jokic is plus 24.1. This is why I said Denver would win the title. I had to pull this number up. Jokic is plus 24.1 per 100 possessions. Or wait a sec, difference. Jokic is plus 26.2. The next best of any player actually legitimately plays is Chris Paul, who's plus 16. And Victor plus 16. Elijah Harkless is plus 18, but he's played almost none, right? Anybody else has played at least 1,000 minutes. There's almost the rest of the guys are plus 15, and Jokic is plus 26 in the on-off difference. Crazy. So it would just make the league top heavy. I mean, the Warriors would suddenly probably be good again because they have Steph Curry on the floor for 34 minutes a night. The Lakers would be good. They have Anthony Davis and LeBron on for 34. So the other thing that would be nice is that teams would not have to. I sometimes it's bummed. Like you see 2 great players and then you have to split them up throughout the game. They'd all just be on the floor together at the same time. It'd be great for the product. The other one I would point out is the commercial breaks would still be the same. We're not going to cut commercial breaks. So you would have, we have the under 9 and the under 3. You'd probably have the under 6 and the under 3. You'd lose 8 minutes of action and you would not cut timeouts, which doesn't seem like that would be a great product. So that would be the negative on the product. But a 2-hour game is what they want because it gets inside the TV window. Your stars would be on the floor at all times. It would be what I think Major League Baseball should do, where you get rid of batting orders and you allow. They talked about the golden at-bat. I think it's brilliant. You should allow Shohei Ohtani to hit every inning. He's the league. And if you have the best players on the floor for 36 and 40 minutes, it'd be great. It'd be way better fan experience if I can come and see Giannis for all 40 minutes. It would be the death knell of teams that are small market, that don't have the star, that are trying to build with depth and creativity in your roster building. It would eliminate some of the roster creativity. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Monday, I'm off. Leaf Tulane is in. And Tuesday, I think, I'm going to take the game off against Indiana and go do some family stuff. So, that's what we got for you. Thank you very much. Follow me on at DLock09 on all your socials. Sign up for the newsletter at Locked On Daily. Follow and subscribe to the program. Right now, we send you the first ever national 24/7 NBA channel, Locked On NBA. And if you're on audio, check out Locked On NBA Game Night every night, every game, every night. See you.